Good evening. Welcome to Silver Slumbers, a channel for achieving the restful Z's that you truly deserve. Tonight, I have some truly chilling stories lined up to help you drift off into slumberland. If you have a personal horror story and you'd like to share anonymously, send it to me at silverscarystories@gmail.com. I'll display the text on screen and include my email in the descriptions below. So, sit back, relax, and close those eyes. And remember, don't get lost in the dark. Warning: some of these stories contain graphic content. Listener's discretion is advised. For some background, I worked summers as a camp counselor in the north parts of Ontario, Canada. On the date this particular incident occurred, I was camping with a group of 10-year-old boys in the same lake the summer camp was based on. So, like a routine camping trip, we canoed out into the site and we set up our tents. Me and my co-counselor, Mike, takes turns supervising the kids while they swim, build forts, and play games, etc. We cook some food over the fire, sit around and tell stories, cook s'mores, the typical Canadian camping experience. At around 9:30ish, I tell the kids it's time for bed, and they head to their tents, which were positioned in a small walk away from the shoreline, but still in a line of sight where I can see them from the fire pit. So the kids are gone to bed, and me and Mike are shooting the shit by the water, smoking a cigarette, just basically hanging out before we decide to head back into the tent and call it a night. What happened next still troubles me to this very day. It remains my go-to scary campfire story. We were both gazing into the pitch black night of the water when we saw a small light approaching us very slowly and slightly above the water level. We speculated what it could possibly be for a few minutes before it came close enough to see what it truly was. We witnessed was the front part of a kayak, and someone was approaching us on our campsite. Now, it's very important to note that as a camp counselor, part of our training goes over how to deal with strangers' encounters in the environment where we are responsible for a group of children on public property. I was prepared to give the mystery paddler the typical speech on how we are camping from a group with a recognized organization, and we would have respectfully asked them if they could find another campsite to stay on. However, this person's appearance shook me to the bone as they drew nearer into the light. Paddling this kayak was a woman who looked like to be in her 60s. She had incredibly long wisp of gray hair that was trailing in the water. Her skin looked like that old leather, and her dead-looking eyes were tough enough to spot under her wrinkles. She looked directly at me, and when she spoke, I realized that she was missing some teeth. "Are all the children safe in bed?" she asked me, pointing in the direction of the tents. Not really know how to respond, but quite frankly, I'm just crapping my pants. I responded by telling her that they were fine and she really needed to leave. "That's good. Just as expected for this time." She said this with a smile. Then she turned her kayak around and paddled off into the night. At this point of time, myself and Mike were legitimately very creeped out. Not only because of her appearance of this mysterious woman who resembled a freaking corpse, but her also inquiry on the whereabouts and safety of the kids that we brought up in this trip. Not knowing what else we can do, we just grabbed our hunting knives and sat by the fire after checking on the kids. Half an hour later is where the crap really starts getting really creepy. Across the lake from us, the female counselor was leading another trip of kids with the same age group. She sent me a text which reads something along the lines of, "Hey, Sean, stop screwing with us. This isn't funny. My kids are... My kids are really creeped out. I instantly called her and let her know that I'd just seen someone near our campsite that seemed very eerie, and that I was not playing any kind of joke. Apparently, one of her kids had opened up their tent to take a pee and seen this woman with long hair standing with her arms open towards them near the shoreline. So, creepy old woman who was paddling in the kayak in the dead of night? Let's not meet ever again. I work in a fairly busy hospital downtown in the NICU. I usually work at night, and I kid you not, this happened to me less than 5 minutes ago. I figure it'd be good to get this down in writing before I forget. It's also the best way for me to have some sort of proof just in case something comes up to it. During orientation, we are taught to be observant to signs of possible abductor. We were taught to look for oversized clothing, bags, and just shifty behavior. Luckily, I've never encountered a strange individual until just now. It's currently 3 o'clock in the morning, and I've been sitting here at the front desk since 11. I'm a nursing student, so I usually just do some cleric work. I also watch the cameras to make sure no one is here that isn't supposed to be here. It's usually pretty quiet at night. However, I've already had some sort of weird night, so this just adds the cherry on top. The NICU and most of the second floor is a locked unit. This means in order to gain entrance, you have to pick up the phone which rings to the desk. Usually it's parents wanting to see their babies and family members who are lost. It usually quiets down around 11, so no one usually comes around in or out during my shift, with the exception of house cleaning. One of the security cameras is situated so I can see who is picking up the phone. I had been sitting here browsing Reddit when the phone rang. I glanced over the phone thinking it was a parent wanted an update or something like that. It took me a second to realize that the phone number was from the door. I picked it up and looked over at the screen. There was a lady in baggy clothing with a sling on her arm. I answered the front door, and she said she wanted to see her cousin, who apparently had been brought up from the emergency department. I asked for the last name, and she unintelligibly rambled off of some Latino name that I only caught first part of. Knowing that we don't have any new admissions, I told her that we didn't have anyone by that name. I tried to get some information out of her, and she again said that her cousin had been brought up by the ED. I told her if that was the case, then she would have to go down to labor and delivery department and talk to them. She hesitated and said, "Okay," and just walked away. I got a really weird feeling from her, so I checked the census to see if there was anyone there being assessed in L&D. And there wasn't. So either she was at the wrong hospital or she wanted to be in the unit to do something more sinister than just see her cousin. I shrugged it off and just assumed that her cousin was in L&D and that she would be able to find her and all was well. About 5 minutes later, the same lady appeared in extremely baggy clothing in her sling. The only difference was that this time, she was putting the sling on and was just using her injured hand to mess with something in her oversized shirt. She picked up the phone and once again asked to be let in to see her cousin, and the L&D said that they had no one by that name. I told her the exact same thing again, and that she would need to be in contact by her cousin instead, and just go over to L&D. She got very hostile for a second, and then hung up the phone. Whether or not that she was trying to gain access to the unit for doing things that she shouldn't be doing. But I'll never know. And this creepy lady who looked like a baby snatcher, let's not meet ever again. This happened about a month ago in Shinjuku, Tokyo, Japan. I'm a 28-year-old white American woman from Alaska. I am slightly above average height for a woman for my age, and I am known by means anything, tiny though, I am not particularly fat or buff either. My point of mentioning that is that I wouldn't be easy target to just scoop up and kidnap. I also have a lot of distinctive identifying features. My waist-length hair is currently half blonde, half dark brown, and I have visible tattoos all over my upper body, including on both of my arms. Last month, I was in Japan for about 2.5 weeks with my fiance and some family, and we have several of our mutual friends. The whole group was about 12 people. I speak Japanese fluently, and I am a well-traveled person. I consider myself pretty street smart, and just be able to take care of myself. So while I did not wander off alone much on this trip, I wasn't concerned if I needed to go anywhere by myself. It was a Friday night during the Golden Week in Tokyo, the day before we were leaving to come back to the States, and our group was going out to eat drink for last night. The area that we were staying in wasn't the nicest, but it wasn't particularly that bad either. Just more dirty than other areas of Tokyo, with a lot more tourists and more homeless people, etc. Each night when we go out, the men in our group would be openly propositioned by prostitutes, and there would often be people just passed out in the streets, things just like that. So on the last night, we were all going out to meet in the front of our hotel to go out, and I happened to be the first person there. Now, I wasn't with my group or people that I know. I was by no means alone. There were hundreds of people around. It was in a very populated area, and I was staying on the sidewalk in front of the hotel. A man suddenly approached me, and the first thing that put up my guard was how close he got to me. Again, this was a very crowded area, but by no means crowdy or noisy enough that he needed to be 5 inches away from my face, which he really was. I'm not exaggerating. He was black and looked like he was around my age, probably between 25 and 35. He immediately started asking me questions, and I got more suspicious on edge with each one. This is how the conversation really went. Hello, where are you from? I'm from Alaska. The stranger was visibly excited, had a crazed look in his eyes. Oh, American. Yeah, where are you from? Ghana. Are you here alone? No, I'm with about 15 people, including my husband and my dad, and they're in that shop right in there. I was lying. In reality, there were 12 people, including my fiance. My dad was not there, and none of the group members were in that shop as well. What hotel are you staying at? I don't know the name of it. It's across the city. Also a lie, as we were staying in front of the hotel that I was staying at. How old are you? 35. Also a lie. I was trying to say that I was old as possible while having to still be believable. Right. Come with me. Yeah, no thanks. At this point, I began to turn and walk away. Yes, come with me. We'll take something. Nope, bye. I then began hurriedly walk towards one of the nearby shops. The stranger started muttering, "Take something. Wake up in paradise." Luckily, he did not follow me, and I waited for my group inside the store that I went into to get away from him. I immediately messaged our group, and my fiance and another of the men started coming down immediately. This incident was particularly scary because a couple of people on the trip with us don't have a radar for this kind of thing, and it makes me feel ill to think about what might have happened if they had been the one being propositioned instead of me. Also, I know I should stop talking to this guy a lot sooner. I was just kind of frozen, and at the beginning I thought that he might have just been a regular guy trying to hit on me, in which I kind of planned on trying to turn him down kindly. Asking from where I'm from didn't really strike me down too weird and, just on its own, but his next lines of questioning were enormous red flags. Notice that in the whole conversation he never once asked for my name, or if I was married or with someone, which you would expect someone to do if they're just trying to hit on you. Also, keep in mind that this happened in one of the safest countries in the entire world. Moral of the story is that you can never be too careful, especially as a lady. Keep your wits about you and don't feel bad about blowing off strangers. Also, it really seems off. I don't give out real information, and you shouldn't too. I shouldn't have even told them what state I actually lived in. Luckily, I realized that he was just very sketchy after that, so I just didn't give any more information. So, creepy guy in front of the hotel, let's not meet ever again. So, this was about 5 years ago, and it still just creeps me out every time I think about it. I'm a female, and I was 18 at the time. I'm now 23. I was walking home from work at the local pizza joint, and I took my usual route home. It was about 9:45 to 10:15 p.m., and it was super dark. As I'm getting about 100 yards away from my street that I live on, a white van turns into the street. Nothing suspicious, but something just didn't sit right with me. So I yanked out my earbuds and paused my music. I then turned down to my street, and as I'm getting closer to my house, I'm starting to get a weird gut feeling. I look up from my phone, and I was about to text my roommate, who was out of town at the time, that I was almost home, about 15 yards or so. As I look up, I notice the white van sitting right in front of my house. And the man inside is just staring at me, the yellow car light shining on his face. He had brown hair, glasses, and facial hair. His van's lights were off, but his car was running. I stopped and put my back up to a tree in my neighbor's yard and just stood there, maintaining eye contact with this man. After what about seems like an eternity, probably like 5 minutes minimum, he starts driving towards the stop sign at the end of the road. I didn't put my back on him. I kept my eyes forward at him. I kept my back to the tree and maintained visual in the van the entire time, until it was at the stop sign. He just sat there for probably about 3 more minutes, and while I'm not looking away, and my back is still into the tree, finally he turned right, the direction in which I had came from. And after about 20 seconds of making sure that he or anyone else was with him, I bolted to my house. I quickly get inside and lock the door. I go to the window and very quietly look through the blinds. I didn't turn on any lights because I am not stupid after looking back for a few seconds. He drove back up to the street and back down and just left. Afterwards, I texted my roommate what happened and then went to each and every one of the windows in my house to make sure that everything was locked, including my front and back door and the garage. Literally anything. I made sure to keep all the lights off for the remainder of the night. I didn't sleep a lick at that night. I was so paranoid at every sound or movement. Let's just say that I never walked home after that. To the man in the van, let's not meet again. Hey guys, so we went for a hike with my boyfriend for his birthday today. We're not very superstitious people, but we were quite very anxious the entire time. We didn't meet anyone on the road, and I was just having this weird feeling like I was thinking, I know we're going to meet someone, but that someone wasn't chill about it. My boyfriend was a bit nervous, which is very unusual of him, as he used to like hiking very much, to go pretty much anywhere. Alright, so we're about 4 hours into the hike, and we reached almost at the end. There was some sort of cabin in the forest, and a guy looking like Tom Hanks in Castaway. Really, I swear, looked exactly like him. So this guy was there. He jumped out of the cabin, butt naked, and with a knife. And he begins to make these grunt noises. I told my boyfriend that he has a knife, and the guy just starts running at us. My boyfriend looked at me and told me to run. Go. And I tried to do my very best, and because I'm not the most sporty girl, I believe I felt a few times where I had a lot of scratches and bumps on my shin, but I didn't feel it at the moment. After what felt like forever to run to escape from this guy, we succeeded to find a way out of the neighborhood and then onto a road. We felt so much relief at the moment. My question is, we feel in shock and pretty traumatized by it. Do you feel like it was a serious event, or maybe it wasn't that big of a deal? I know that might sound stupid to ask, but we really don't know anymore. Maybe we're overreacting? We did report him to the police, by the way, and they were supposed to get back to his place, but we're not sure if they're going to make it there in time, in case he escapes. So, crazy knife-wielding naked man, let's not meet again. This is a story that pops back up my mind from time to time. I've only told it a few people, but I definitely feel like it deserves a place in here. It's for sure one of the scariest moments I ever had as a child. Back when I was around 10 years old, my mom decided it was time for her to get her driver's license. When she began taking our lessons, she was struggling a lot. For that reason, my dad decided that he wanted to do some practice with her, besides the official lessons with her instructor, just to make sure that she passed the upcoming test first try. My little brother and I were attending swimming lessons at this nearby university at the time. Behind this forested area near the university lays this huge student parking area, surrounded by trees, which turned out to be basically empty every weekend. My dad saw the opportunity and took my mom there to drive around for a bit, and brought my little brother and I with them since we were too young to be home alone. But at least we brought a football with us. When we arrived to the parking lot later, in that evening, my parents began their practice. My little brother and I got really bored, so we asked if we can go over to the grass field on the other side of the parking lot to play the football. My parents let us since they were always able to keep their eyes on us while we're driving around. After playing for some time, my parents ended up driving around to the other end of the parking lot. They were about 300 or 400 meters away from my brother and I. All of a sudden, this white Toyota pulls up in the parking lot. We were playing right at the exit entrance. The car turns around and stops on the right side of the vehicle facing the exit. The driver rolls down his window and presents himself as Thomas. He looked friendly, was good looking and young. I guess maybe he was around 30. This is where things get a little weird. On the passenger seat was a woman covering her face with a newspaper. All I could see was long blonde hair. And on the back seat was a baby, sat in the baby chair. Thomas immediately states that he was from the police, and that we had to get into the car immediately, and he has to talk to us. My brother actually took 2 steps forward to the vehicle, but I stuck my arm out in front of his chest, as I was sensing something was off. The woman was still covering her face, at this point not saying a word. Thomas then raised his voice and told us to get in the car, otherwise he's going to come out and grab us. My brother and I froze in fear. Suddenly, the woman put down her newspaper, showed her face, and told us in the most calm, motherly voice. "Just listen to the man," the woman said. The woman looked very young, pretty, like a person who wouldn't hurt a fly. At this moment, I began to scream as loud as I possibly could. What we hadn't seen at that point was that my dad was already running down as fast as he could towards us. It was coming from behind the vehicle, so we didn't see it. My parents didn't have time to drive to us since the road was down in the parking lot was all twisted in all different directions. When my dad heard my scream, he started yelling as loud as he could. "Who the F are you? Get away from my children!" As soon as Thomas heard my dad and realized my brother and I weren't alone, he threw his car into gear and took off as fast as he could. He definitely looked like someone that crapped himself when he heard my dad. My dad was furious and told my brother and I to hurry up back into the car. He didn't even think about calling the police at that point. He wanted to beat up the guy all by himself. That resulted in us driving around for the next hour trying to find him before my dad had to cool himself down and decided that he should probably just call the police. We never found out who those people were, but this episode taught me to never judge a book by its cover. People can be the most friendly looking people in the world and still wish evil upon you or to the ones you love. I'm not sure what these people would have done to us. I'm pretty sure about one thing though. They definitely weren't from the police. I, female, 23, staying with my friend who is also a female and 23 years old. For a couple of weeks in a town that I grew up in, I stayed with her. She works at a restaurant. Without giving away too many details about the location, it's a plaza nearby a river, nearby a movie theater, also close to a restaurant and a couple of bouquets. We enter through the parking garage, which has about 3 stories, both elevators and stairs, but this is really important. She had a 6-hour shift, so I decided to do some shopping, listen to music, and just walk around, eating at a restaurant my friend works at. I was sitting at the bar on the corner alone, listening to my music. A bigger man approached me. He had a security guard beanie on that was incredibly dirty and all tattered up. He was muttering, and his eyes were barely open. What I got from his muttering was, "Are you... I like your... Is anyone sitting..." But keep in mind, it was incredibly muttered. I didn't really understand what he was saying. I'm just guessing what he was trying to say, and as of all this was happening, he kept switching his eyes back to my face, back to my chest. I told him multiple times that I could not understand what he was saying. After a bit of back and forth, I put the headphones back on around my neck, and he left me alone. I told my friend about what just happened immediately. I tried to shake it off, hoping that it was just an isolated incident. If this is where the story ended, then I wouldn't have been writing this, unfortunately. About an hour later or so, I see someone approach the bar to the left out of the corner of my eye, and I felt their eyes on me. I didn't look, but somehow, I knew it was him. My heart started to beat really fast. I texted my friend and told her that I was really sketched out. I wanted to believe that it was just misreading things and I was just letting my anxiety get the best of me, but I couldn't shake the feeling. 30 minutes or so later, she gets off work. As we are walking towards the parking garage stairs to get to our car, I saw him sitting on a bench, waiting for me. The benches aren't too close to the elevators. They're closer to the restaurant, if anything. The second I spotted him, my blood ran cold. He saw us walking towards the stairs to the parking garage and started running towards us. I was face to face with him by the time we got up to the top of the stairs. We booked it back to the restaurant and used the employee elevator to get to our car, and an employee escorted us to our car as well. The employee told us that there was a lot of cases of homeless people walking around the restaurants, so I presumed that he was homeless and just walking in and out of the restaurant until he saw me. I'm incredibly thankful that I trust my gut when I saw him. I don't know what would have happened if I didn't see him at first, but I don't want to find out. So, to the stranger, let's not meet again. One night, I, 18, male, was at the gym around 10 o'clock at night because I work all day and the gym stays open all night, 24/7. I was casually working out as always, and out of nowhere, this very short Hispanic guy comes out of nowhere and asks me what I'm doing later. Thinking this is very odd, I decided to ignore him and act like I couldn't hear him because of my headphones. He kept asking me, but eventually, he left. When I finished my workout, I went to the locker room to get my keys and check myself out in the mirror. As I entered the locker room, the guy that was sitting on the bench started staring at me, like watching my every move. So I skipped looking at myself in the mirror and just grabbed my keys and go to the bathroom real quick. I can see that he starts to follow me as I head to the urinal, so I quickly resort to the stall. When I left from the stall, he was still there, just staring at me from the urinal. I ignored him and started leaving the gym, but he still follows me. Once again, he asked me what I'm doing tonight and what was my name, but this time I couldn't pretend not to hear him, so I just said, "Sorry man, I'm not interested," and quickly got to my car and drove away. 1 week later, I had work again this day, so I was at the gym around 10 p.m. and everything was normal. I was working out, saw some friends, and then I see the same guy from the week ago staring at me while leaning against the empty wall. I try to ignore him, but every machine or workout I do, that he just starts to follow me. I stayed by some friends so he would hopefully not come near me. When those friends left, so did he, so I thought I was safe. I get my stuff together, head out around 11:30. At this point, my phone had died. I was a little worried, so then I started to freak out because when I approached my car, there was a rose in my truck handle on the driver's side. I actually started to run and get back into the assistant's table, and I asked someone who was working because I really did not feel like dying that day. After removing it, I sped home as fast as I could. A few days later, I had a normal workout. I didn't see him until I went to my truck again. He was parked right next to me and standing in front of his car. While I got in, I could see him watching me the whole time. Now, every time I go late at night, he's waiting for me and asking me some weird questions. I talked to the workers about this, and they said that he's not from here and that he's just trying to be nice. But I can't help but wonder why he doesn't get the hint that I don't want to talk to him. I wake up hours early in the morning to go to the gym now. But when I go late, he's still there, watching me every time. What should I do? Another time, there was a rose on my windshield and a phone wire wrapped around my handlebar. And then more recently, he added me on Snapchat. I don't know how he got my name, or how he knew what car was mine in the first place. This all started a couple days ago, July 5th, where I got this random call from FedEx around 10 p.m. where they would ask me for my name and address, which they already knew. I gave it to them thinking that it was just a package that they lost and somehow found its way back to my home. Hindsight, I should have known FedEx doesn't deliver past 8 p.m. here in Canada. I thought nothing of it until I got another phone call saying that they could not find my unit number and asked me to come out to the roundabout near my place. My dad thought it was weird, so he patrolled the area to find these people. My dad did around 4 laps. The first lap there wasn't really anything there, but then I got curious and joined him on the second lap. Yet again, nothing. I went back to my home. Dad did a third loop around the house. He found a gray SUV in the corner and confronted them. They told my dad that they aren't the delivery person, and my dad left to do another confirmation check. As he was doing this last lap, the same SUV was not there. The next day, July 6th, around 6 p.m. to 11 p.m., we heard a doorbell ringing, and I went down to check, and it was just 2 individuals around the ages of 20, I guess. They knew my name and was calling out for me. I thought it was weird because I've never seen them before. I didn't feel safe, so I didn't pursue them. They kept coming over again and again, so we called the police and asked them what we should do. The cops told me to contact them if this ever happens again. The next day, July 7th, it was very quiet and nothing weird happened, so we thought it was just the worst of it had just ended and just went on with my day. The next day, July 8th, it was the same quietness, but when the time approached to 11 p.m., my security camera spotted an individual with a mask and was taking photos and videos of my current house. This was the breaking point. We contacted the police and informed them about this weird behavior. Just when you thought it was over, I was just casually in the living room around 3 in the morning the same day, July 8th, and I heard something thunking outside of my balcony. I thought it could be anything, but I didn't mind it until it thunk again. I went to the balcony to go see what it was and check out what I was hearing. Then it clicked. I was face to face with the intruder. I started screaming for help, and my family came down to check on me and check out the commotion. Thank God I checked the balcony that day. Who knows what could have happened? Today is July 9th, and I haven't gotten a wink of sleep to think about the horror of that face I saw. Am I the targets of this home invasion? How'd they get my name? What do they want from me? Update 1. The situation has calmed down, and the police are on the report. Currently at an Airbnb until the construction is finished. Thanks for those who are worried. Second update. House was lit on fire. We're all safe. The police told me that they threw a Molotov. Update 3. The police told us to lay low and to log off on all social medias. This will be my last message. This happened a few years ago around mid-November. My mother and I love being outside and going out for walks. This night in particular was freezing, but we decided we want to go out for a quick walk. As we walked back home, we went down this one street that we used to go to all the time. It was a neighborhood street that leads to the main street, and then back to our neighborhood. We get around halfway down the street when I heard a dog bark over the music on my phone. I turned it off and turned to look at the dog because I love dogs, and I wasn't aware that there was a big dog on the street. Here's some context real quick. I know quite a few people on the street, and I know which houses have dogs. Most of the people on the block have small dogs or cats. This came from a house that did not have a dog, let alone a big dog. Anyways, I spun around and saw a big, dark mass just a feet away from me. If he stepped 2 more feet, he would have been able to grab me. I immediately felt weird and started speed walking back to my mom, who at that point did not realize that I stopped. I turned off my phone and whispered to her that I thought that we were being followed. She turned around and grabbed my arm and told me that there was 2 men right behind us. We were making a zigzag pattern, and sure enough, they were following us in every step. Once they caught on that we knew, one of the dudes started making small chit-chat with us. "Awfully late for y'all to be walking, huh?" I swear, his voice sounded like the definitions of siren voices, luring sailors to their doom. He continued asking questions to us. My mom kept walking and replying with quick replies. From the sound of his voice, I knew that we were in danger, so I dialed 911 on my phone. Instead, my mom told me to call my dad, as he would be able to get us much quicker, because we were almost home. We got to the busy street and looked behind us to see them speed walking to us. We decided to risk and ran into the middle of the street as cars passed on either side of us. We ran across again and met my dad on that side. We looked across the street and both men were gone. We got into the car and searched the street, but these guys just disappeared into what seemed like thin air. I told my mom that we would have been kidnapped if I had not heard that dog barking. She asked me, "What dog?" I asked her how she didn't hear a massive barking dog, especially with how good of a hearing that she has. I still have no clue what I heard, but I do know that it most likely saved my life. This happened in college at the time when I was 18 years old and a sophomore. I had just recently got out of a 6-year relationship and was just starting to get out into the dating scene. I downloaded Tinder and got into swiping. Here's some background first. I didn't want to talk to someone that went to my university because thinking about running into someone that I was talking to out of the wild just really made me anxious. I ended up matching this guy. We'll call him Marco. So, Marco was 20 and a junior at a neighborhood university, about 15 minutes up into the road. He only had 1 selfie, and the other 2 pictures were just in a group photo, and they seemed older, and I just didn't think much about it. We started chatting, and very quickly he asked for my phone number. I would say it's a little too early for that, but he kept insisting, and I just eventually just gave in. After about 2 days of talking, he started to ask for pictures, so I would send selfies. He would ask for more provocative pictures, and I would just keep shutting him down, telling him that I wasn't interested in that and I just wanted to see how things went. Marco would say that he couldn't wait to meet me so he could just kiss me, and every time he would say that, I just had to change the subject because it just got a little weird. We planned a date after a week of talking. He said that he knew a good Indian restaurant over by his school, and then we could walk into downtown after. I agree, as it was in a public area. The day came for the date, and again, I started to get a weird feeling. I told my roommate what I had planned for the night, and she said she'll keep her phone on her, in case I need her. A few hours before the date, I got cold feet, and I told him that my car wouldn't start and I had to reschedule. He offered to pick me up, and I kept telling him no, and that we should just reschedule. But he kept insisting and started to make me feel guilty. He would say how he was looking forward for it for the past few days, and I was hurting his feelings. And that he would be more willing to get me, but I'm not giving him the chance. Well, I caved in, and it was the worst decision I've ever made. Despite the feeling that I was telling him the information to get out to the lot outside my dorm, right when I get into the car, I realized that this was probably going to be a horrible date. Right away, he tried to hold my hand and asked me to give him a kiss. I denied, and he started to drive off. On our way to our destination, he drops that we are no longer going to the restaurant and that we're going to go to his apartment instead, and that he was going to cook me dinner. At that point, my heart sunk, and I started to have a little panic attack. I texted my roommate letting her know. She was worried, and again, she said she will have to come and get me if I need her. Also again, not listening to my gut, I tell her that it's fine, and we get into his place. When I say this apartment was disgusting, I mean it. It was entirely covered with trash. Dirty clothes and dishes were undone. He said we had to go to his bedroom because his roommate was home and he didn't like it when he had company. His bedroom was even worse than the common area. There was only a single path to the bed, and to the bathroom it was just so dirty. We sat in his bed and he turned on the movie. I can't remember the movie. All I remember was the stench from the room and him starting to make advances on me. Marco started rubbing my back and shoulders. I kept scooting away, trying to get some distance between us, but it didn't work. After a few minutes, he started to force himself onto me. He started to kiss me really hard and holding my head so I couldn't move. I don't know how, but he eventually was on top of me and enforcing his entire body weight on me. I couldn't move an inch. I'm paralyzed by fear. He doesn't get much further than that because as soon as he was on me, he just as quickly came off me and ran to his restroom, and he's throwing up. I have never been so thankful for a vomit. I don't know why he got sick. When he came out, he apologized to me that he was getting sick and that it happens all the time, and says that he needs to take me home. Trembling, I just get up and straighten myself and follow him out. I still don't know if he's going to try anything else, but I didn't want to aggravate him or say anything wrong, so I tried to act like nothing was wrong just to get home safely. And yeah, that happened. He pulls up to my building, tells me that he wants to make it up to me, and I just nodded and said good night and got out of his car. Once I got inside, I blocked him, reported him on Tinder, and deleted the app. I also took extra measures to block him on any social media that I could. I didn't tell anyone at first what happened. I was honestly embarrassed because I put myself in that position. I started getting calls from random numbers, and when I answered, there wouldn't be anyone on the other line. I would block the number, and a new one would keep calling. It got to the point where my phone was constantly ringing. After the phone calls were random Facebook and Instagram messages from different accounts. They would say things like, "Are you ignoring me? Why aren't you talking to me?" And then they started to get more aggressive and threatening. My roommate started getting messages and I had to tell her everything. She told me that I need to report them or at least tell my parents. I didn't do any of that because I was honestly scared. That is until I started receiving random pictures of myself. I would be walking on campus, in the dining hall, in class. Then I got one in my dorm room. It was taken through my window, which was on the second floor. However, The main street was on a hill, was the same level as my window, and that is what my room faced, and my bed was in front of the window. I told my roommate, and she made me tell our RA. The RA was very concerned and ended up calling the campus police. I made a report with them. The messages continued, and so did the photos, until one day, about a week later, he approached me on campus. He grabbed me by my arm and tried to take me to his car. I started to yell, and luckily, there was campus police nearby. He was arrested and banned from my campus, and I did not hear him again. This was quite a few years ago, so some of my memories aren't as vivid as I try to block this part of my past. Not many people know this about me, so to this day, my family doesn't know. The only people that know was my college roommate, the RA, the campus police, my therapist, and as the other night, my fiance knows now. I want to spread awareness of the dangers of online dating. Always trust your gut. If something doesn't seem right, it probably isn't. Not all online dating has consequences. I met my now fiance after a few years later on a different dating website. But your gut is usually right, and sometimes it's crucial to listen to it. With that being said, Marco, let's not meet again. So first of all, let me start by saying that I'm dyslexic, so if my spelling or grammar is off, I apologize. I'm 25, female, and I'm from England. This started about 5 months ago, and first of all, it was quite a pleasant interaction, but it was slowly getting worse and more creepy. So it started about November, October. I noticed that my wing mirror on my car has been put inwards. I park on a street away from my house, so I have a short walk to my home. My main house is on the road, with one road, and my parents park on the drive. I asked my mother if this was her, as it was a thoughtful thing to do. She refused that was her, and my father also said that it wasn't him. So I thought it was just some kind, thoughtful person. After all, where I park has a lot of older people, and they always say good morning to me whenever I sit up to work. This continued for months onwards. It has only recently stopped since parking away on the side street. I asked a couple older people on that street, and they said that it wasn't them either. At this point, I only wanted to thank you. So I was continuing going to work and didn't notice anything else until the winter weather got worse. December 2023 was when the weirdness continued. The frost kicked in, and the snow started on occasions. Since I set off for work at 7 a.m., it could be frosty at the time, and I would need to de-ice my car. About mid-December, I remember running late for work, and it was like 7:15 in the morning, and I still had to de-ice my car. So I was doing a careful rush to my car, as it was very cold and icy, only to get there and see that it has been de-iced for me. I was confused and a little happy, but also shaken. It was a little strange feeling. Again, I asked my parents if anyone was in the side street, and it wasn't any of them. My mom laughed and said that, "You might have a secret admirer." Well, it's like she was a fortune teller. The de-icing of my car happened a few times more on very icy days. From January onwards is when the things get more strange, at the point where I'd start to park my car elsewhere. About the end of January, start to February 2024, I saw what I can only describe as homemade food left on top of my car. And don't worry, I didn't eat any of it. I just ended up throwing these in the trash as soon as I get to work. But I found the situation getting beyond strange. Around the same time, the first letter/note was left on my car. It was written in as what I can describe as doctor handwriting. It basically asking me if I was enjoying being treated like, and I quote, the princess I deserve to be treated like. I brought this to home and showed it to my parents, and they didn't like this at all. My dad said that he was going to start parking on the main street, and that I could park in the driveway for a while. I said this would be a good idea. However, if this person was looking for my car, then he would know which house was mine. My dad agreed, but also pointed out that he/she may have already been watching me and may actually know where I live. He stated the main thing was me walking home from my car to the house at 8:15 p.m. He stated that he would sort the situation out if anything else happened. I questioned possibly going to the police and stated that they would just make a laugh about it without any proof, because we don't have any kind of proof or anything criminal. He was right though, my dad. We didn't have anything. I didn't like the idea of parking back on the street, so I stopped. Now it's April. I stopped parking on the drive a few weeks ago, and know that I started parking on a different street still close to my house. Now, nothing has happened since February, and I hope it doesn't, as it was starting to get worse. Do I have a stalker? Or someone was just messing with me? I will try and answer any questions if you guys have.